if you really care about your employees, it might be better to go with somebody that actually knows what they're doing, versus somebody that came in with what is actually an unrealistic offer, and they're not going to be able to get it to close.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Connections That Matter, where we have engaging conversations with Northern Colorado's best networkers and find out some of their hidden tips and tricks about what makes them successful. Today, I have Taylor Bryner from Transworld Business Advisors in, and if you've been to a networking event, you might have seen him. He's usually the sharpest dressed guy in the room. Taylor, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Best is quite the adjective there.
Maybe I got to level up my venues that I see, but you definitely come in making a good first impression from what I've seen.
I appreciate that.
Well, tell us, for those who haven't met you, tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Yeah, my name's Taylor, and I help people sell their business. That's what I do.
All kinds of business,
all over the place. I mean, my biggest client right now is a multi-million-dollar biotech company, and my smallest client that I ever worked with was a $60,000 shack on the side of the road. No hyperbole there.
You sell the shack?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we did.
Well, it's interesting business because as you're coming up with evaluations, looking at numbers, looking at people, what all goes into a business sale?
There's so many moving pieces. There's a lot. I mean, the first step is kind of just a information gathering phase, a discovery phase. I'm trying to get to know the client, how their business works, doing a deep dive into the financials, trying to figure out what a fair market price will be. That's more of an art than a science at times. And then after that, I'm putting together marketing material, trying to condense all that information to help people make a decision as quickly as possible. And then we blast that out all over the place. We get people to sign NDAs before they get to look at any identifying information. And then they're receiving that packet. I mean, businesses get anywhere between 50 and 150 inquiries.
Really?
Yeah. And a lot of those are tire kickers. A lot of those are, people that are interested but don't have the resources to actually get the deal done. And so I'm filtering through those. And then once we've kind of narrowed it down to a few people, we're interviewing them with the seller, making sure that we're finding a good fit. The last thing you want to do is spend months in a transaction with somebody that you don't like. And then, then kind of begins the due diligence phase. That's where everything's out in the open. You show them pretty much everything, save for maybe a few secrets that are going to wait until after the sale. If everything looks good in due diligence, then we get the meeting of the minds and try to get everybody on the same page. That's where the lawyers come in. That's where that's where things can sometimes fall apart, where people are got a lot of sunk cost into the deal at that point, and so people try to do interesting things at the closing table. But we try to spot those landmines in advance, and then I get paid when the sale actually finishes. Once all the documents are signed and the business actually transfers over, that's how I get paid.
Well, it's interesting. I watch, network with a lot of people who are trying to grow their business, and the passion of an entrepreneur is high, I would say. But is that tough in a business transaction environment? Like, are people just super attached, and maybe their sense of what the value is not the actual market value?
Yeah, it happens a lot. It's similar with real estate, where people think their house is worth more than it is, but it really depends. I have seen it the other way around too, where it's actually worth more than they think. That's a rare exception, but it's, when it comes down to it, a business is worth what somebody's willing to pay.
Yeah. Well, as business owners who are watching this, what are some things that determine the value of a business? Yeah,
if that's probably the question I get asked the most. If you really want to break it down, I'm going to give you like 7 years of my education boiled down into like 5 minutes here.
Do it.
Value equals return divided by risk. That's that is the value formula. No matter what, that's going to determine the value of anything. The return is easier to get a hold of. That we find that on the P&L. We find that on the tax return. That is what the benefit to the owner is for owning the business. So we can measure that. There's also some intangibles in that too. If somebody is wanting to escape corporate life and they just want to be their own boss, that can be worth something too. But the solid number, that's pretty easy to get. The risk portion is a lot harder to get a handle on. Every single buyer is coming to the table with a completely different background, a unique set of experiences, a unique education, their own investment time horizon. That number fluctuates for every single buyer, and so for every single buyer, the business is worth something different. That's the benefit of a free market. We take it to market. Yeah. We try to collect all of those bids and take the highest one.
Well, take me through the mindset of a buyer. We've actually had quite a few podcast guests. Instead of starting a business, they've bought a business. Where do they come from? What are they looking for? And would you say they sign an NDA? Is it like plumbing business with these rough numbers and then they find out what it actually is? How does that work?
Yeah. So our listings are all anonymous, but it gives you some information, rough location, what industry, as long as it's not too niche. They're rough numbers, and then they're signing an NDA and getting to look at the rest of the information. I would say 80% of our buyers are what we call corporate refugees. They're people that are trying to get out of the rat race and buy their way into a business, and that makes up the vast majority of the people who inquire. The rest are what we call our strategic buyers, somebody that's already in the industry. Oftentimes, businesses can be worth more to strategic buyers, especially if that strategic buyer has a better profit margin and they think that they can bring that profit margin to your revenue. That can be a better value capture than the average corporate refugee. But those are the two main categories we see.
Yeah. So when on the other side, when they're ready to sell, are they just like sick of it? Time to hang it up? Or is it what situations lead to a sale of a business?
It varies, but unfortunately, a lot of times it's death. A lot of times it's health problems, divorce, all the big same life events that would cause somebody to sell a home can come into play. Financial problems, all of those are what I tend to see. I can give you an example. One of my first clients, their mother was having health problems and they needed to move out of state, and on a very quick timeline. And so that's we've got a saying that you can sell on your terms at their price or on their terms at your price. And so if you've got a better negotiating position where you can be more flexible with the buyer, that puts you in a better position for negotiating price at least. But when those things that you have no control over really force the situation, that's where people get in trouble.
Well, let's talk about communication, because the art of the deal, you have some strategic, like some people sell their businesses and the employees don't even know that it was up for sale. There's a lot of, specific who knows what, when. But what is that communication like throughout the sale process? Yeah,
there's, first and foremost, my communication with the seller is my top priority. Most of the time I'm representing the seller. I'm keeping them up to date on everybody that's reaching out about the business, and that's all being done through private channels, email and text and phone calls and in-person meetings. The buyers, it's much more staged when they get information. Like I said, they'll get a general teaser. Once they sign an NDA, then they'll get more identifying information, more specifics. During due diligence is when they're going to get a look at like all the raw data entries into QuickBooks and get to see how we came up with our numbers. But yeah, generally employees are the last to know, employees and customers. Neither of those groups in most cases should know until after the sale. If you think about it, you might think you have really loyal employees, but as soon as the idea of them not having a job enters their mind,
they start looking.
Yeah. They start having backup plans. And if we all do our job right, they're not going to need to find a new job. That's unnecessary stress on them. And so, the introduction happens after the close. Hey, here's the new owner. Nothing's changing. This is, it's business as usual. And the old owner is normally going to be there to support the transition all the way through and help everybody get acclimated to whoever bought the business.
You talked about the books and looking at the numbers. What's the state of the business books, and like what should they be if you're prepping it for a sale?
Yeah, as clean of books as possible. I've talked to some people that don't have books, and that all that does is create perceived risk where there doesn't need to be any. And really, perceived risk is the only type of risk that matters in a transaction. It's the risk that the buyer perceives. But if you can have clean books, that makes a huge difference. Every business owner wants to be as unprofitable as possible in the eyes of the government to pay the least amount of taxes.
That's what I was wondering.
And when you go to sell your business, you want it to be as profitable as possible to get that return up for the buyer. There's a kind of a mutual understanding between all parties that that's how that works. And there's a way that we as brokers go through and normalize the financials so that, it's actually reflecting the tangible benefit to the owner. Yeah.
Well, Taylor, too, like some people build a job and other people build a business. And so when I say build a job, like the business can't really exist without them. So I would imagine the value of that business is significantly lower if they're trying to exit. What framework or what decisions would you advise for somebody who's really trying to build a business and not just build a job?
Yeah, that's true. That does impact the value. I do want to clarify, though, that just because you've built yourself a job doesn't mean it's worthless.
Sure.
Those do sell. Let's be clear. Restate that second part of your question.
Yeah. What advice would you give to a business owner who's really trying to focus on building that business, not just building a job?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the 80-20 principle. If you haven't read that book, read it. Basically, the main point is that you spend 80% of your time doing things that only account for 20% of your income. And those are things that you should probably be delegating out so that instead of spending 80% of your time on that stuff, you can spend 80% of your time on the stuff that really matters. It's so much easier said than done. I don't want to just put that out there like it's easy to do. It's hard to do. Talk to people that have done it. Put in place good processes. Having a good CRM is important. Having a good sales system is important. Automating as much as you can, especially now with AI. I've played around a bit with automating things I don't want to do, creating tools that'll merge my tasks from my CRM directly into my email, things like that. There's a lot of stuff you can do that can help automate.
Let's get into those tools because I'm very curious of the tools that you use for your business, but you probably have a unique insight into the tools that people are using for their businesses. What are some hidden secrets or things that are working really good now in 2026?
It's a little bit hard to say because a lot of the people I'm talking with are older and haven't implemented those things, and they're looking at getting out of the business for a reason. And so on the flip side of that, there's an amazing growth opportunity in those types of businesses. I would say the right CRM is the one that you're actually going to use. Don't overcomplicate your systems. Like, keep it simple. Use checklists. They're used in aviation for a reason. Every single time an airplane takes off, there's a checklist that has gone through. That's because it works. So lots of checklists, and that would be keep it simple.
Well, I imagine there's no two businesses that are the same, but
None.
Tell me a story of one of your recent transactions and kind of take me through it from how you first got the lead or the talk or to closing table.
Yeah. Let's see. I had a lady reach out to me that had a pest control business, and she needed to move for health reasons. Needed to go be with her mother, and she reached out to us. We came in, did a valuation. Given that the timeline was so short, just a couple of months, we priced it lower than market. Normally, on average, for a regular small business, you're looking at like a 2x multiple. That's the number gets thrown out. It's a little bit more complicated than that, a little bit more nuanced. It varies by industry, but that's kind of the average. I think we win at a 1.8 multiple, and we were able to find a buyer. Actually, the next day, somebody called, and they ended up being the ones that put in the winning offer. The actual due diligence portion took about 5 or 6 weeks. That's pretty average. With bigger businesses, it can be quite a bit longer. A lot of times with the bigger transactions, the largest bottleneck is going to be the lender. And then, yeah, we all decided that we wanted to close on the last day of the year. So I scrambled over Christmas to make it happen. And that's how it turned out.
Right on. Well, let's talk about the team of people that you work that helps get to the closing table, because I think a lot of people would view it like a real estate transaction. There's title, mortgage, but in a business transaction, is it CPAs, bookkeepers? Are you networking with all of those people involved in the business?
Yes. CPAs and bookkeepers are huge. Oftentimes, because I need their help understanding why they did what they did with the books. CPAs are key to closing. Depending on the size of the deal, having specifically tax experts can be a big part of it. Having attorneys and landlords as well. The landlords that own the property, if they don't own their own property, can throw a wrench in things. So
sure.
Those are kind of the I would say those are the main parties that are involved. I come in at the very beginning, help get everything tidy, sort through all the different buyers, and then we try to keep the attorney costs down. We have some good partnerships with attorneys that charge flat rates for our smaller deals to keep things affordable for small business owners. And they've already got all the templates for the promissory note and changing the name, and they've got all that just on standby. So it's we've got a really streamlined process.
Well, let's talk about networking, because like I see you networking, I see you building relationships, but specifically in a business like yours where it's B2B, you're trying to get in front of business owners. Some of these networking events are, realtors, tradespeople, a lot of B2C stuff. Mm-hmm. How do you sort out to make sure that you're networking effectively in the B2B space? Yeah,
it's definitely a challenge. I mean, the person I want to talk to doesn't need to network. They've already got a well-established book of business. They're just chilling while all of their employees are making millions, right? That's not the standard, but those people are out there and they're hard to find. I don't look at any sort of networking as better than another form. Everybody knows business owners. Everybody has family or friends that have business owners. That's one of my things, is that everybody has somebody everybody has something to teach me. And so when I go out, I'm looking for all sorts of diverse backgrounds. I will say, though, that like networking in action has been good. It's people that are intentional about growing their business. Tabletop networking is fun if you're just trying to build up a network from scratch and you're going in. That's a great way to really hone in your elevator pitch. Let's see, what else is there? Colorado Connect is another good one that meets in the Elizabeth Hotel in Fort Collins. Yeah. That one's a good entry level. I shouldn't say entry level, but it's free, it's welcoming, very community focused. And then for finding some of those more established businesses, it's trade shows, it's sector partnerships, stuff that's specifically for one industry. That's where you tend to find the people all trying to learn from each other, and that's where the big guys are.
And when you get referrals, or I'm sure it's somebody's having a conversation. Maybe it's at a bar late night, or they're just talking about what's next for them. But a lot of people don't know how to sell a business. I wouldn't know how to sell a business. What's that handoff like from that conversation, or maybe they're exploring in the mind, to connecting them with somebody who could truly get them what they want?
Yeah. Yes, I get quite a few referrals, and I'll always be given some sort of piece of information that the person knows about them. And a lot of times I find out that that's just a cover story or not the full picture. So my first step is to try to get an in-person meeting. I don't want to talk over the phone. I don't want to be going back and forth over email. I want to get into a private room where we can look over numbers, get really specific about things, and actually figure out what it is that they're what it is that they're looking for, because sometimes they're not even honest with themselves.
What does that look like? When they're saying they're not honest with themselves, what does that mean?
Some people will get I don't know, they'll get hung up on certain things that they think should be important to them, but really it's not. Sometimes that can be price. If you really care about your employees, it might be better to go with somebody that actually knows what they're doing, versus somebody that came in with what is actually an unrealistic offer, and they're not going to be able to get it to close. The right buyer is the one that's going to be able to get it across the finish line. I mean, people will come out and say, "Well, I want to buy it for $1 million." It's like, okay, cool. Where are you going to get that money? Well, I was hoping that seller finance. It's like, all right, well, that's not how any of this works. So let's back it up a little bit.
Well, how much does legacy play in a business transaction? Because your business lives on after you're gone. Some people care about it, some people don't. Like, what do you see as far as the way legacy plays?
I see that a lot, where it matters, some it doesn't at all. There's some people where they would happily negotiate something else away just to keep their name on the business and to make sure they stay on the about page. There's other people where it's not a big deal. The family businesses there can be more emotions tied up with that. I'm seeing a real trend towards, and I guess there's a bit of survivorship bias. I'm only talking to the people whose kids don't want to buy the business or don't want to run the business. But I will say there's quite a few of those that they're like, well, I thought my kid was going to want it, but they don't. And so that can get a little bit more emotional, but it's all about finding two parties where one wants something that the other has, and vice versa. And in the best negotiation, you're going to find out something you didn't even realize you wanted, and get that too. That's what I'm trying to aim for, is find out, hey, is there something creative here that you never even would have thought of that actually makes it better for you? And that happens.
Taylor, one thing that I noticed about you is, like, you're really good about building trust with your clients or your referral partners or the people you have a knack at, like, doing that at quicker level than the average entrepreneur. Give us some tips. What are some of your secrets of how you build trust so fast?
I view vulnerability as a superpower. I will talk about the nitty gritty things that have happened in my life pretty quickly, because I've gone through hard things in my life, and I want them to have meaning. And I think if I can help other people avoid the same things I had to go through, that's a way to give those bad experiences meaning. And so I don't try to sugarcoat my past. I don't try to lie about who I am or things I've been through. I just try to, make it normal to have a weird, hard life. Everybody's gone through something. Yeah. And if you can make them feel like they're safe to share anything, that's where you build trust.
Yeah, right on. Well, some great businesses, either from having you personally worked on the transaction, but a lot about it being a good networker is being able to recommend the really good ones. Why don't you give a couple shout outs, some people that you worked with or some businesses that you would authentically endorse or recommend in Colorado?
Yeah. Let's see. Well, out of our shared network, Kelly Vaughn at Team Logic IT, she's great.
Former podcast guest. There you go.
Yeah. She's awesome. I've seen her work firsthand, fixing problems when stuff hits the fan. Her and her team were on it and fixing it very quickly. I also know that they reinvest in the community in a multitude of ways, and that's I think that's an indicator of a good business. Let's see who else. Actually, also Jeremy Howe that you had on the podcast. That guy is way overqualified. He's got a very interesting background in the medical field, and it's is it just carpets or just all sorts of sanitation that he does?
Carpet and restoration, yeah.
Him and I have talked specifically about the biotech listing that I have right now, and that dude knows his stuff. So he's a good guy. Let's see, who else did you also just had Thomas
Kern,
right?
Yeah.
Thomas is a good guy. If he paints like he treats his networking, he'll be there on time and he'll show up with all his energy. I really like Thomas.
Right on. Well, how much of a business success or the magic is the systems or the processes or the human being behind it?
It's a mixture of both. I don't know if this will make sense. I kind of view business as alchemy. You take something that's less valuable. You take smartphones, for example. The sum of those components is what, like $5 in raw materials. If you can reorganize something that already exists so that it has more utility, that's where value creation happens. For example, like therapists, they see a lot of the same problems. They help people through those problems, and they reduce the amount of work it takes to solve those problems for each individual client. That's value creation. And so really I don't know that it's not necessarily about the systems. It's not necessarily about the people. It's just, is there value creation and are they scaling it up? And, the people are where the value creation, I think, happens. The systems are where the scaling happens. Both are necessary to grow large businesses, but I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think that's
kind of how I view it.
I'm just viewed that entrepreneur that is thinking about their exit plan. Should they reach out to somebody like you when they're ready to sell, or does it make sense to reach out to someone like you maybe 2 years out of a way to prep and get ready for it? Yeah.
Well, all the stuff that makes a business valuable is stuff that you should be doing regardless of if you're going to sell the business. Like I said, the only way to create value is increase your return or reduce your risk. And you want to do both of those as a business owner. I would say our process takes on average 8 months to sell a business. That's the average. But that there's outliers. It can take multiple years,
sure.
Especially if the business is niche. So I recommend people, reach out to me like 2 years in advance. We should be having that conversation before that 2 years, though. Transworld does the sale portion of selling a business, but we also have a sister company called Exit Factor that does the leading up to that and building up your business and putting the systems in place and making it more transferable. That's something that I think anybody at any state in their business should be going through.
Right on. Well, Taylor, I'm sure people watching this, either they're in the B2B space and they see you as, hey, he's probably talking to the same people that I want to talk to, or maybe they got a business and they're wondering what it's worth, wondering how to sell. What's the best way for somebody to get in touch with you, either do a one-to-one or have you give them a consultation?
Yeah, absolutely. So my work number will be in the show notes. If you want to reach me personally, my personal number is 970-222-1202. It's a really great radio number. Lots of twos. Super easy to remember. Give me a call. Text me. My email is tbryner@tworld, TBRYNER @tworld.com. Either of those, you'll get to me. But let's sit down in private and see what we can do, see if we're a good fit.
Right on. Well, Taylor, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate great conversation. We'll see you around Northern Colorado.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey all, thanks for watching. I love networking and building relationships with other Northern Colorado business leaders. So if you want to come meet some of these podcast guests, meet me, or meet some other amazing entrepreneurs in Northern Colorado, I would love to have you attend one of our next events. Go in the podcast description. There's a ways that you can see our upcoming schedule, and maybe you could be a future podcast guest as well. Thanks.